Representative Donnie Copeland joining us. Donnie, good to talk to you, sir.
Hey, Paul, how's it going, man?
It is going pretty great, actually.
A lot of news out there, isn't it?
It really is. There's a ton of news out there. How have you been doing? What's the biggest news? What's the biggest news item that's been on your mind the last couple of days?
I would say the Roy Moore, Luther Strange race in Alabama, and the NFL by far. Mm-hmm. Those two are the two leading to me.
Who do you think Asa Hutchinson wants to win that Alabama Senate race, if you had to speculate, Roy Moore or Luther Strange?
Man, you are a man. You are a legend in your own time, not in your own mind, in your own time. Because what I thought about last night was, is there anybody in the Arkansas media that has asked the governor that question? And if not, why not? And so I don't know. Maybe Roby Brock will ask him.
Mm-hmm. Well, I mean, I think we all know. I mean, we all know what. You know, yeah, right. That's not going to happen. Or I mean, we all know what Asa believes. I mean, we all know he wouldn't want Roy Moore.
He's a big Luther guy. I mean, Big Luther is right down the line. Now with last I heard, Moore was up 16 points in one poll. Mm-hmm. The last poll I read last night.
Yeah, we got to watch.
So I'm sure,
Yeah, I'm sorry, Donnie. We got to watch it though, because you never know what kind of dirty tricks they're going to play on the ground. Like they did in Mississippi in that primary with Cochran.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, I'm not in any way, shape, form, or fashion. I guess I was thinking more back to the governor. Would he answer that question? Well, he'd probably either at best hedge or would haul around because of the poll. But yeah, to the election itself, absolutely. I wouldn't put anything past them. Look, if they will spend $30 million, A, B, they will tell the lies and things they have done on Roy Moore and basically try to destroy a man who has been nothing but stellar in that state.
Yeah.
All for a Senate election. They'll do anything.
Yeah.
We've seen this movie play out in Arkansas, right?
Yes, we have. But, I mean, you think about, his stance as on the Supreme Court, on the Ten Commandments in Alabama. That is so what's sad is there are people in the establishment all across this country that are so upset about that or so intimidated by it because they honestly don't know how to defend the Ten Commandments in public anymore. It's really sad. And then, statements, like he quoted, red and yellow, black and white, they are all precious in his sight. Jesus loves the little children of the world the other night, And he said, I'll probably get in trouble for saying that, red and yellow, black. But it's so interesting how you have other people that are so politically correct that they look at somebody like Roy Moore and they're worried to support him,
Yeah. And an interesting part, I did a little digging into the Ten Commandments controversy and the gay marriage. And if you look at that, Roy Moore, of course, being a West Point graduate, the guy is a brilliant guy. He's a country boy. He doesn't come off super polished, but he is not a dummy. He's a very smart man. And if you look at both of those controversies, and I put that in parentheses because I don't think either one of them were, both of those, he stood on the merits of the law. Neither one of those were like religious stands. Those were law. I mean, he had a solid standing legally on both of those. Mm-hmm. It's just that as Supreme Court in this nation has decided the laws they don't like, they ignore.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, and the point I made on Copeland Report, I said this. I said, so Roy Moore ignoring the law on gay marriage is not the same as liberal judges in Seattle ignoring the law on immigration. Those are both federal laws. Actually, one is a law and one's not a law. There was not a federal law about gay marriage, but there was a federal law about immigration,
yes.
And yet you had judges who ignored that, but they didn't get reprimanded. They didn't get thrown out of office. Mm-hmm. And so there's this huge double standard, just like it's going on with the NFL. Tim Tebow kneels and he gets ostracized. People write on their socks about 9/11. They get fined. And then you have, these guys kneeling, and they don't even know why they're kneeling, quite honestly, most of them.
Yeah.
They couldn't tell you. If you said, hey, I don't want you to kneel anymore, let me fix this. What do I need to do? They couldn't tell you.
Yeah.
Jerry Jones couldn't tell you, you know.
Yeah,
And
they're talking about,
and if you look at the NFL, go ahead. I'm sorry.
You go ahead. No, look at the NFL. Look at it.
Yeah, if you look at the NFL, and I was doing some research today, man, you look at the NFL and you look at the entangled leftists, the way they got all these tax exemptions, this tax-free status, nonprofit status, a $17 billion a year corporation gets nonprofit status, and this is all done by
The maintenance of a free society is a very difficult and complicated thing, and it requires a self-denying ordinance of the most extreme kind. It requires a willingness to put up with temporary evils on the basis of the subtle and sophisticated understanding that if you step in to do something about them, you not only may make them worse, but you will spread your tentacles and get bad results elsewhere.
I think it's time we ask ourselves if we still know the freedoms that were intended for us by the Founding Fathers. We lose freedom here, there's no place to escape to. This is the last stand on earth. Whether we believe in our capacity for self-government or whether we abandon the American Revolution and confess that a little intellectual elite in a far distant capital can plan our lives for us better than we can plan them ourselves.
You're listening to the Paul Harrell Program, brought to you by Conduit Media Group.
Hey, folks, welcome to the program today. Thank you so much for being with us. My name is Paul. You have found the intersection of conservative ideas and reality, where we are building a liberty machine. And we appreciate you doing everything for us, listening. You know, it's what keeps the show on the air. If you want to contribute further, one of the ways you can do that is to call us or text us, 870-275-9799. We got a lot of news to get to today, a lot of interviews to get to as well. Let's start at the top, though. Let's start at the national news. You have Donald Trump, who has announced his tax plan, okay? And it's gotten a lot of people talking. We're going to talk a little bit more about that at 5:30 in depth. But we also, right now, I want to welcome back to the program Mr. Jacob Bundrick. He is a policy analyst at the Arkansas Center for Research and Economics at the University of Central Arkansas. Jacob, welcome back, my friend.
Hey, Paul, thanks for having me on. I'm happy to hit leadoff today on a busy day for you.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think it's great that Donald Trump just, has been talking about tax policy and rolling this out, because you have written a paper that I think is very useful, very beneficial about the state of Arkansas, state taxes and manufacturing productivity, a case study of Arkansas. And so I have a few questions about this paper, but what led you to want to write about this topic?
Yeah, thanks, Paul. This is a paper that was published in the academic journal called the Journal of Regional Analysis and Policy, and it's kind of right in the bread and butter of ACRE, where we want to look at the data in Arkansas and see what policies can help Arkansans become better. And so when I first got to ACRE a few years ago, we had kind of been looking at some different manufacturing data, some different data in different industries around the state, and we really noticed that Arkansas was lagging behind in a lot of different categories in manufacturing. So we had seen less growth in the real dollar value of manufacturing, so less growth in GDP. We'd seen a greater decline in manufacturing share of GDP than our neighbors. We'd seen a faster rate of manufacturing job loss than our neighbors. And so we really got interested in this idea. And one thing that we found that we thought might be a root cause of it is that we've seen slow growth in labor productivity, which basically means manufacturing output per manufacturing employee.
Okay. And I think you've done a great job here pointing out, what the issue is and really some of the consequences for not, making attempts to try to fix this problem. On page 21 of your paper, talks about the high tax burdens here in Arkansas. They're costing the state almost $2 billion a year in manufacturing GDP. So do you have any idea what taxes specifically, Jacob, are preventing this nearly $2 billion in manufacturing GDP?
Yeah, so the first thing that we did is just kind of look at the total tax burden as a percentage of state GDP to give us an effective tax rate. So GDP can be thought of as productivity, so your tax collections are a nice, easy way to look at what your effective tax rate are. Gets around the complications of the different tax structures in states. And so we found this negative relationship between the total tax burden and manufacturing productivity, and we thought, wow, that's interesting. It's in line with what other literature suggests, but we thought it would be more useful to look at the different tax components. So there's really four big ones, right? You think of corporate income taxes, individual income taxes, property taxes, and sales and use taxes. And what we found is that two of those taxes have are the primary drivers of this negative relationship, and those are the corporate income tax and the sales and use tax.
Okay, so the corporate tax and the sales and use tax. Okay, so you say that those are the biggest tax burdens right now that you think is correlated in preventing that $2 billion in manufacturing output that we're not seeing.
That's what our evidence would suggest based on our estimates, using the empirical techniques that we did.
Wow. Okay, so what specific rates need to be cut? Have you thought about that in terms of how much do we need to see? What rates need to be cut, and then how much increased manufacturing GDP? Go ahead.
Yeah. So the way that we went about thinking about this is kind of twofold. One was we looked at our basically our bordering states with a few other states thrown in there like Kansas and Alabama. And we said, okay, one way to look at it is what would happen if we pick the median state and cut our tax rate to the median state's rate. And that was Missouri. So we can go through our using our estimations from the empirical model. We can arrive at a number and say, hey, we're losing about I'm losing the number here. We're losing about $1.6 billion in manufacturing GDP as a result of having such a high tax burden. And then another way that we did that is just looking at the average tax burden in the region, saying, if we just move to the average, became more competitive in our region. We're not looking at going to zero. Mm-hmm. We're not looking at going to 1%. We're just trying to be average. What would that bring us to? And that running through that estimation puts us at increasing GDP, manufacturing GDP, by about 1.5 billion to 1.6 billion, assuming all else is equal.
Gosh. So, we're essentially, what we're hearing, folks, we're talking with Jacob Bundrick from the Arkansas Center for Research and Economics. So we're hearing that the tax burden in Arkansas is prohibiting manufacturing from being able to produce more. It's inhibiting their productivity. And you've mentioned the sales tax rates. You've mentioned the corporate income tax rates. So why do you think that ranks as the most significant factors? And, when we're talking about what's hurting manufacturing, why is it the corporate tax? Why is it the sales tax?
Yeah, that's a really great question, because that's always the next step in one of these analyses is to think about what's causing that. And so the corporate income tax is fairly easy to explain. There's a lot of literature on this, and what it suggests is that the corporate income tax raises the cost of user capital. And basically what that means is corporations end up investing less than they would have. When we tax them, it actually raises the cost of capital to them, so they're less inclined to invest in more capital, which make people more productive, and so we end up with less output. The sales tax is interesting, and it's a little bit counterintuitive than what you'd expect. But we suspect there's some other channels that's working through. Most states exempt manufacturing inputs and business-to-business inputs or sales from the sales tax. So you wouldn't really expect that the sales tax would increase the cost of capital. Arkansas used to tax the input of business machinery, but we got rid of that in the last session when we flipped InvestArk and exempted that sales tax. So that's a natural step for a next study, is looking at, what is the root cause of sales tax affecting manufacturing productivity.
Yeah. On page 17, you discuss in your paper about how an inventory tax and a capital stock tax, you mentioned these, and I'm not really familiar with this. Can you explain to us what those are and what their impact is on the manufacturing productivity? And can we reform these?
Yeah, certainly. So an inventory tax is essentially a property tax on a business's inventory. So you think about someone who's going through, or someone who has a manufacturing facility. They have these raw materials. They have halfway finished goods. They have some finished goods that are sitting in the warehouse. So we actually apply a property tax to that inventory. Wow. And that's problematic because it distorts business decisions, right? So you think about, we don't have an Amazon warehouse around here because we would tax all that inventory that's in that warehouse, right? And it
hang on. Now that's interesting.
Decisions
Jacob,
about how much to produce, how much to hang on to.
Yeah.
And we don't really want them thinking about those decisions. We want them thinking about how do they make a better product, which markets do they need to get to, things of that nature. So we're distorting their process there.
Well, I want to mention,
it's also called a franchise tax.
Yeah, Jacob, can you hear me?
It's essentially a tax on a business's wealth. All right. So in a lot of ways, it serves as a duplicate income tax. We already have an income tax. It's not really clear why we would need to tax a business again on top of that. But both of these are really outdated taxes, and we should really think about reforming them.
Yeah, Jacob, can you hear me? Okay.
I can.
Okay. Sorry, I was trying to talk over you. I apologize. You mentioned if Amazon came here, we would be taxing the stuff sitting on their shelves that hasn't been sold yet if they had a warehouse. And there was talk about us trying to get an Amazon warehouse here, maybe using maybe turning a former military base into that sort of thing. And what you've just essentially told us is there's no way they would do that. There's no way they would come here and then be subject to our oppressive tax code.
Yeah, there's a lot of reasons why businesses make location decisions. It's they got to think about how close they are to their suppliers, to their downstream firms, the workforce they can get. But tax policy certainly plays a role in that, right? And there's certain things that we can control. There's certain things we can't control. We can't help that we're not on the ocean. I would love to move Arkansas to the ocean and go to the beach every day, but that's just not going to change. But tax policy is one of the things that we can change. And when we have these distortive taxes like an an inventory tax, then yeah, it does play a role in these firms' decisions.
Really good stuff. Okay, let's move. Let's see. Backing up a little bit, over on page 13 of your paper, targeted tax incentives, corporate welfare, alters firm costs in a way that makes less productive firms become low-cost producers. Resources will shift from high-productivity firms to low-productivity firms. This shift decreases overall productivity and economic growth. So that's from the paper. Does this mean that these corporate welfare programs, like, let's say, the Governor's Quick Action Closing Fund, actually hurt current manufacturing?
Well, I just want to put a caveat in there. It's not guaranteed that these incentives will necessarily shift resources from these high-cost producers to these low-cost producers, or these high-productivity firms to these low-productivity firms. But it's a very real chance, and those sometimes have to be evaluated on a case-by-case basis. But it's a very real possibility that happens. In terms of incentives as a whole, whether they help or they hurt, there's an extensive amount of literature on this that suggests that incentives generally don't help the broad economy. We've actually got a few papers in the works right now specifically looking at this. That one of them should be out in the next month or so, and then another one's a little bit down the road. So when those are fine-tuned, I'd love to come on and talk more about those for you.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. And just kind of wrapping up here, again on 13, economic growth largely stems from productivity increase. That's pretty basic. When people are more productive, like you said earlier, we have more economic growth. So does this mean that government doesn't create jobs? I mean, is that what you would take
That's right.
from that? We
should be focused on helping people become more productive. There's this is almost, if anything is going to be a truth in economics, this is the closest thing to it. That productivity increases economic growth. So we should be looking for ways to help that. It's, things like education, things like not distorting production decisions that might influence how productive firms are able to make their employees. So we should be focusing on productivity.
Yeah. Okay. I know I said last question, but this is last question. Unrelated to your paper, Jacob. The Donald Trump, in his tax speech today, his proposal, and the Freedom Caucus supports it. I mean, it looks like they're going to get this thing passed. They're going to be eliminating, though, the deductions on state and local taxes. And I was just wondering, I mean, don't you think that could really end up? I mean, now Arkansans, if you're in that top bracket and paying basically 7%, you're no longer going to be able to deduct that from what you owe the federal government. You have any thoughts on that just initially?
I'd really love to comment on that, but I haven't actually looked at his proposal yet, and then two, I spend most of my day looking at the state policy, so I haven't had a really good chance to look at that and form an opinion on it.
Yeah.
But maybe that's something I'll look at and can get back to you on.
Yeah, absolutely. I just think it's a big deal. My thought is, good thing that Asa and the Republican-led legislature have spent the last 3 years reforming our tax code. Oh wait. No, they haven't, and we have really high tax rates that now we're not going to be able to deduct off of our federal income tax bill if this goes through as is. Jacob Bundrick, I appreciate it, sir. It's always a pleasure. I appreciate your research and coming on here and sharing it with this great audience.
Yes, sir. I'm always happy to come on and visit with you, Paul.
All righty, Jacob. Be safe. Folks, we're going to take a break. The Liberty Machine rolls on. Back in just a moment. Arkansas small businesses are tired of taxes that are too high and regulations that work as obstacles to small business success. If you own a small business, it's time to take action. Now, I'm not talking about the local chambers of commerce. I'm talking about an organization that's actually run by small business owners and are fighting for small businesses right here in the state of Arkansas. They're called Conduit for Action, and they're on your side. Conduit for Action is here not to get something from the government, but to be left alone by the government. Think of them as your personal advocate for limited government at the Capitol in Little Rock. If you're tired of all the politicians talking with no results and ready for action, start outsourcing your government affair needs with Conduit for Action. Go now to conduitforaction.org and click on Contact Us on the right side of the page. That's conduitforaction.org, and stand up for small business in Arkansas. Do you need to advertise your business product or service, but not sure what the best choice is? Folks, allow me to introduce you to talk radio. You're listening to it right now. Talk radio is one of the most unique mediums in all of advertising because it actually works. It gets the information you want to the people you want to get it to. And by the way, those people are educated, well-informed decision makers of their household, and most of them have disposable income. If this is a target audience for your business, then you have to consider advertising on my show, The Paul Harrell Program. We have options for most any budget and can provide you with exciting opportunities to grow your business. We can put your message across the state, or we can help you locally. Call 870-275-9755 if you have any questions. That's 870-275-9755, or visit my website, paulharrell.com, and click on Advertise.
Now then, attend, as friend to friend, our declaration committee. For us I see immortality in Philadelphia City.
Coming up, we're going to be talking with Mr. Dan Borum with the Patriots of Act 746. Really excited to have him back on the program for the second week in a row. And we're going to be talking about, there's a Facebook post out there that had to do with, what is the, we've got people that want to parse the words of our gun laws, like, what does on your person really mean? On or about your person. Like, what does that really mean? I'm going to talk to him about that because there's some interesting conversations that have been going on about that. But so Donald Trump and his tax code. This is pretty big, folks. I mean, I know what's going on with the some people are saying, they're going to raise that tax on the top bracket or whatever. And there's going to be things on this tax code I think I disagree with. But the biggest thing, putting that business tax at 25% is incredible. Or capping the business tax on sole proprietorships or S corporations, capping that at 25% would be very significant in lowering taxes on small business owners. I mean, it would be huge. It would be absolutely huge. We haven't got to talk about Judge Roy Moore. Now, we're going to be talking more about Judge Roy Moore and this massive victory over in the state of Alabama. Coming up at 5 o'clock, we got a special guest that is going to be coming on to talk with us at 5 o'clock. We're going to talk a little bit about Judge Roy Moore, and I got a feeling we're going to talk about Arkansas as well. So you're going to want to stay tuned and listen to who's going to come on the program at 5 o'clock. But this was a massive rebuke. Joe, do you understand how much Mitch McConnell spent on Luther Strange? $30 million in a primary race in the state of Alabama is gone. It was spent on Luther Strange, who lost. And there's all these reports out there saying, well, Trump's really disappointed that he was convinced to support Luther Strange, that Mitch McConnell saying, no, you got to support him. I personally think there was some deal made, hey, I promise I'll support you, and he wanted to keep his promise. And the speech the other night, the rally the other night, he said he would be supporting Roy Moore if Roy Moore won, and Roy Moore did win. But what a victory for the grassroots conservatives that are tired of the swamp.
My question is, why do you have that much money?
Well, this is
to just
the
throw
problem.
at somebody for the potential of you never, ever
just
seeing
think about
in return.
Just think about how valuable they thought Luther Strange was versus somebody they could. It comes down to somebody you can control versus somebody that's going to think for themselves.
Well, yeah, that's why Asa doesn't want Files to resign right now, is because he wants a yes man.
Hey, that's a good point. That's a really good point.
Like, it's the same idea.
If you call a special session right now, which we may have to for some reason or another, Jake Files will be voting on behalf of the people of Fort Smith just the way Asa wants him to.
So apparently, in Mitch McConnell's mind, having a yes man is worth more than $11 million. That is a large sum, however much money.
30. It was 30.
Was it 30? I'm sorry. I don't know why I said
$30 million
so yeah,
is what they beat back.
So yeah,
now,
Mitch McConnell having a yes man is more valuable to him than $30 million.
So what?
That is absurd.
That's a lot of money. But what it shows is this is a big victory, and what this shows is that the election of Donald Trump was bigger than Donald Trump, and that some of the things and the ideas that Donald Trump campaigned on, right? There's no question it was an issues-based campaign. It wasn't just a Trump, a personality campaign. I think there was some of that, obviously, but it does show that there's people that if you're going to get elected and you're going to say, attention Arkansas Republicans, and you're going to say that you're going to do X, Y, and Z, or you're going to claim to be a conservative, and then you don't do it, it seems that there are people that will take action to get someone else in there who will do what they say they will do. Or at the very least, we'll get somebody else in there and give somebody else a shot to see what they can do. The phone number, 870-275-9799. Next up, Patriots of X, 746. Don't go anywhere.
Paul Harrell, weekdays from 4 to 6. Learn more at paulharrell.com.
From my home state of Louisiana, it was Boggs and Huey Long's son
Yep.
that that it is beyond corrupt how that all came to be to begin with.
Well, it's bread and circuses.
And I'm glad to hear they're going to undo it. I hope they are.
Yeah. I think they said something about that in 2015. The tax exempt status is kind of going out the wayside. But and I talk about this in my Wednesday weekly Patreon video. That's going to be out tomorrow, just about bread and circuses. We actually compare this whole NFL situation to Rome and the bedrock principles of our society. Use a little Francis Schaeffer in there. But Donnie, I
love Francis Schaeffer.
Me too. How Should We Then Live? It's a great book. That's kind of what we're talking about tomorrow in that video. I will tell you this about the Jerry Jones thing. When I saw that photo of Jerry Jones kneeling, the one word that came to mind was worship. It literally is. Let's bow down. Let's pay tribute to political correctness, but it's not really political correctness. It's just let's make these fantasies a reality. Let's acknowledge that these fantasy outrage moments, these social justice warriors, we're going to claim that it's a reality, even though I don't think Jerry Jones is on board. I think it's more of a business decision.
Yeah, and we see this with corporate, America, just on a wholesale level, just folding. I mentioned this in a sermon on Sunday. You look at a lot of leftist stances that they have no credible. They have no concrete substance, because let's take Target. Target makes this decision to start having these bathrooms. I mean, the women's bathroom where men can go in the women's bathroom. It costs them $2 billion. It makes no economic sense. Zell Jewelers starts running a ad campaign with two women mixed in with all the other couples trying to sell wedding rings. And the lesbian or gay population is 1.5% of America. No one in their right mind would spend that kind of money to alienate the huge majority of your customer base,
but they do.
1.5% of your customer base, unless it goes beyond. It's not about dollars and cents. The NFL is not about dollars and cents, because Rush Limbaugh's right. They cannot win this fight. They cannot win this. So it's not about money. They're going to lose. I'm going to tell you right now, they lost $200 million in 2016, and they were already in the tank 12%, and I've got a story coming out on Copeland Report about this. The minor leagues where Tim Tebow played this year was up 12%. The NFL is down 12%. Now, I think that's divine coincidence right there, personally.
Wow.
But, these are not good, solid decisions being made. This is being made. You nailed it. It's like worship, and it's really disturbing. It goes back to liberalism is a mental disorder.
Well, I would just say, I was talking to a guy in the studio. They were talking about how and this is just the truth. I mean, I'm not saying you can't be on the left and be religious, but it does seem that more and more, those who identify with the right-leaning politics, they tend to be more religious.
The Paul Harrell Program.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the program. Thanks so much for being with us. It's time now for our weekly Patriots of Act 746 segment, where we're going to talk about Arkansas gun laws and your Second Amendment rights, your Arkansas constitutional rights as well. Welcome back to the program. Mr. Dan Borum is back with us. Dan, good to have you back, sir.
Hey, thanks a lot, Paul.
I just want
looking forward to coming back on today.
Absolutely. I just want to say I got great feedback on our interview last week, and it really took an organic turn. It was just conversational. Good conversation. You were talking about getting involved and your story, and I just want to say it was a pleasure to do the interview. But I know everybody else kind of just felt the same way, that you really you come across very genuine.
Well, thank you. I really appreciate that, and I do appreciate the feedback that received from a lot of your listeners. It's very encouraging.
Yeah, absolutely, it is. But I wanted to try to, talk just a little bit about some stuff that's been going on Facebook. Our friend Gary on Facebook, he posted he posted a few things where we're talking about the definition of on you. He said this on Facebook. Joe, you can throw this up on there for our online audience. Think about it. Do you have your pocket knife, quote, on, end quote, you? What is he trying to say? What is he trying to convey, communicate when he says something like this?
Well, I know exactly what he's trying to convey or communicate to the readers out there to get people to think. No one really thinks about you having a pocket knife on you because the pocket knife is generally concealed, but a lot of people even have a pocket knife clipped to their front pocket, and it's open where it can be seen, but people don't seem to be threatened by pocket knife. But the thing is, the same law applies to a handgun as well. To have a handgun on you is just as legal as having a pocket knife on you.
So elaborate on that. So which statute, which law are we talking about? Are we talking about specifically Act 746 here? Are we talking about people who are trying to say that on you doesn't mean the same thing when we're talking about a firearm versus a pocket knife? What's the rub here?
Well, let's just take a second and just read 573-120 in Arkansas law, what we refer to as Act 746. It says, carrying a weapon reads as follows. A person commits the offense of carrying a weapon if he or she possesses a handgun, knife, or club on or about his or her person in a vehicle occupied by him or her, or otherwise readily available to use for use with a purpose to attempt, and here's the key word, to attempt to unlawfully employ the handgun, knife, or club as a weapon against the person. So as long as a person is carrying their handgun, their knife, or their club with lawful intent, then they have every right to carry. And there's nothing in 746 that says anything about having to purchase a permit from the Arkansas State Police to do so.
And
so
that would cost... Go ahead.
The problem is it's so ridiculous to me, Paul, is, our former governor and president had a problem with helping verbs, trying to define helping verbs. He had a real problem with that. And it seems that our AG and some of our representatives have a real problem defining a preposition. I'm kind of an old backwoods guy, but I have a little bit of education. I would be more than happy to give them a grammar lesson on prepositions and explain to them how they work. Mm-hmm. It's really not a hard thing.
Yeah.
Think about it. You think about these prepositions, about. It can be used as a preposition. It can be used adverbally. Synonyms of the preposition about are near, nearby, around, hereabout. Has the idea of not far. It's not far off. It's not far away.
Yeah.
The preposition on simply means physically in contact with, supported by a surface. So if I have a weapon on me, it's physically in contact with me. It's supported by a holster, a good holster. It's in physical contact with me. If I go into a restaurant in the wintertime and I have a jacket on, then that weapon is concealed. If I get warm and I take my jacket off and hang it over the back of the chair, then the weapon is open. And then, but in no way, form, or fashion does that break any laws in Arkansas. It is completely lawful
yes.
to carry that handgun, knife, or club on or about your person, as long as there is not an unlawful intent to use it against another person. It's very simple.
Yeah, it really is. I mean, it really is. And, there was some decent work done, trying to prevent this last session, John Payton's Bill 486, trying to prevent the Arkansas State Police from changing the rules and that sort of thing. But then we have, this new enhanced carry. And, there are people – let me get your thoughts on this. I mean, do you think that it's an advancement of our gun rights to continue to put more levels and red tape to exercise those rights for a fee that we have to pay the government?
As far as I'm concerned, they could take the enhanced carry bill and just put it in the trash and burn it. It's worthless. It means nothing. There are representatives, I've been seeing certain representatives writing on Facebook, and blowing their horn just how, that it's a step forward in the right direction. But, friends, listen. Article 2, Section 5 of the Arkansas State Constitution says the citizens of this state shall have the right to bear arms for their common defense. Then we have Act 746 that doesn't necessarily, it didn't just jump in and all of a sudden make Arkansas the constitutional carry state, but actually it confirmed what we already have, but that people do not recognize. The thing is, if people are told a lie for a certain amount of time, people then begin believing the lie. And that's what's happened in our state over the course of all of these years. We've just believed that that's the status quo, that's the way it is, and that's what we have to do. But then when we start researching for ourselves and digging into these things, we realize that we've been taken. Mm-hmm. And bottom line, it's for nothing else than the almighty dollar. Just follow the money, and you'll follow the corruptness in this state. Yeah,
you're exactly right. We're talking with Dan Borum from the Patriots of Act 746. Now, Dan, you're a little bit older than I am, and I wasn't following, concealed carry laws, back when they, first originated. But you say something about, if you repeat a lie long enough. Do you remember what the atmosphere was like when we first started this concealed carry licensing, pay the government a fee type stuff? It's almost like, I mean, were there a bunch of people who were getting arrested at the time or something? I mean, I don't know if I don't expect you to know that, but I'm just trying to speculate here. Were there a lot of people being arrested at the time for possession of weapons and concealed? And so then they're like, hey, that's a problem. And so now let's create a license and let's regulate it. Something tells me that wasn't the case. Something tells me this was an effort to address a problem that really that didn't really exist at the time. What are your thoughts?
The problem did not exist. In fact, I'll just use myself for an example, Paul. I was oblivious to these things. As a teenage boy driving, I carried my dad's handguns, and he had little .22 revolvers, Rugers. I had my own when I was about I think I was around 19 years old. I bought my first .22 revolver, and I carried them with me. I carried them with me in White Rock Wildlife Management Area. Just when I was up there just snooping around, driving around, I had no idea that I was supposedly breaking somebody's law. I just always believed that I could carry a gun with me. I used to always keep an old double-barrel 20-gauge in the front seat with me, loaded. And it went with me just about everywhere. And then I'd slide it under the seat if I was going to get out. Mm-hmm. And lock my doors. There was not a problem. Here's the whole reason that concealed carry came to be in the state of Arkansas is because they needed a cash cow to help fund the Arkansas State Police, and they dreamed it up through a concealed carry program. And through that program, I don't have the exact number, but I know that the Arkansas State Police annually was bringing in over $2 million annually into the Arkansas State Police. Mm-hmm. Off the back of the people of Arkansas who already had that right, not because it was written in our Constitution, but by the very fact that they were born and they breathe, they have the right to defend themselves.
Yeah. So it's fascinating. So what you're saying is true. People already had the right to carry, and then the government comes in and says, no, we're going to license it, and people automatically assume, well, okay, it's illegal if you don't have the license, right?
That's exactly right. It wasn't until, really wasn't until that I got a smartphone, and then I finally caved in and decided I would get on the Facebook, because I enjoyed seeing other people's hunting pictures and things of that nature, fishing pictures, and then I started looking at all of these advertisements for get your concealed carry license, and I thought, boy, maybe the wife and I ought to get that so we can conceal carry. I guess you're not supposed to have a handgun on you if you go out into the public or into a restaurant unless you have one of these permission slips, these permits. So we went through a class, we paid the money, paid for the fingerprints, did all of the, and I had no idea that money went to the Arkansas State Police. I just thought it went to the government somewhere in our state. But it wasn't until Gary Epperson got a hold of me, and he and others in this group started educating me, and then it spurred me to start educating myself. And when I started educating myself, it's like my ears turned red because I knew I had been taken. And that's why I am so adamant about getting this message out to others who were like me, who were oblivious to what the law really is. And I'm going to tell you, Paul, as a pastor, I believe what the Word of God says, that I am supposed to submit to authority over me. Okay, looking at the context of what the Lord told us in the Word of God, being underneath the Roman Empire at that time, those Jews, I'm not underneath the Roman Empire. I am underneath the Constitution of the United States of America. Therefore, it is my duty, not only as a citizen, but it is my duty as a Christian to uphold the Constitution of the United States of America and to fight against the lawbreakers who are legislating on the outside of the Constitution. Therefore, I fight against them.
I think that's exactly right. I mean, I feel the same way about our right to vote. You know what I mean? I mean that's being a good citizen, and that's submitting. Absolutely. It's great, when you look at the Constitution as it is, it's to protect your freedom, and so submitting to the Constitution, in the biblical sense, like you're referring to, is actually. It's really not that big of a deal, or it shouldn't be, because the government's not supposed to take our rights away. The government's not supposed to sell our rights back to us, and yet that's exactly what's going on.
Exactly, Paul. I wish people could get that in their head, especially in the Christian realm, because everyone is so afraid. I even heard a representative preaching at one time trying to push down our throats that how we're supposed to submit to whatever they legislate. That's wrong, because you see, the Constitution was not written to keep us at bay. The Constitution was written to keep the government at bay. We, the people, we are the government, and they are our representatives. We're not a democracy. We are a republic. We are represented we have representation. And we want our representation to go and represent us within the boundaries of the Constitution. That's what we're fighting for.
Yeah, that's exactly right. Hey, speaking of being armed, when we were here last week, and we started, we were mentioning carrying in church. You know what I mean? Or, your congregation. You were mentioning your congregation, and I said, I know there's a lot of congregations out there doing this. And, we talked about it, and then there's a tragedy this weekend where we have this this man from Sudan who goes into a church in Tennessee and kills 7 people. I mean, I couldn't believe that we had discussed that very concept, and then it ended up happening a couple days later.
You know, the sad thing about that, when you was reading the article about that shooting in Tennessee at that Church of Christ assembly, the man ran back out to his car to get his weapon to try to defend himself and the people there. If he had had it on him, look at the odds in their favor of protecting life would have been so much greater.
Mm-hmm.
So I carry in church as a pastor, sometimes it's covered, sometimes it's not. No one is concerned. Oftentimes when I go up to the pulpit, I just take it off of my hip and I slide it right under the pulpit. Sometimes I take it out of the holster where I can just reach my hand down under the pulpit and get it if it was absolutely necessary. I hope it never happens in my life. I hope and I pray to God that I never, ever have to use lethal force on another human being.
Of course.
But I will to protect myself, my family, and people around me if absolutely necessary.
Dan Borum with the Patriots Fact 746. Another great interview. I appreciate it, sir, and thanks for giving us that perspective on, just the history of gun laws and kind of this psychological, the government really manipulating us psychologically to making us think that we don't have the right just because they create a licensing program to make everybody feel better about themselves. I really appreciate it, Dan.
Hey, Paul, thanks for having me on. I really appreciate it.
All righty. Be safe. We'll talk to you again soon. Folks, that wraps up our Patriots of Act 746 segment. They are trying to educate people about Arkansas gun rights, the laws, what it actually says, not maybe what, a prosecutor wishes it would say or an attorney general wishes it would say, what the law actually says. We've got to take a break. We'll be back, though, in just a moment. Order. In the name of public safety, order. This meeting of the Arkansas State Licensing Board governing state licensing boards is called to order in the name of public safety. What's on the agenda for the day?
We have before us today, per our summons, a representative from the Arkansas State Licensing Board governing cosmetology, cosmetologist, and all things hair care and beauty.
Right. Of course, I remember this. In the name of public safety, ma'am, please state your name for the record, and thank you for appearing before us today.
Yes, my name is Cosmo Glamour Gazette, and I'm here in response to a letter our state board received claiming we're in violation of the Arkansas State Licensing Board governing state licensing boards. In the letter, you claim that our licensing board is in violation of your rules and regulations because we have failed to, quote, pay tribute, end quote, and therefore have not been granted a license by the Arkansas State Licensing Board governing licensing boards to, quote, shake down the Arkansans who have an interest in cosmetology, end quote.
In the name of public safety, order. Yes, Miss Gazette, we sent you that letter because you have not obtained our approval in the form of a license from our board to distribute licenses to the professional class your board strives to protect. In the name of public safety, of course.
Of course.
So, in the name of public safety, and just so we can get this for the record, you do admit and agree with our board, the Arkansas State Licensing Board governing state licensing boards, that you have not obtained a license, thereby revealing your board of cosmetology to be operating outside our rules, regulations, and authority?
Well, sir, I'm not sure our board agrees that we need a license from your board to continue to shake down, to look out for the public safety of Arkansans.
In the name of public safety.
In the name of public safety.
Well, it seems we are at a bit of an impasse if we are not in agreement that your board owes us tribute.
Sir, maybe we could ask and see if there's a bureaucrat in the house.
Ah, yes. Yes, that would shed some light on things. A bureaucrat. Yeah, in the name of public safety, is there a bureaucrat in the house? We need someone to resuscitate and confirm our authority as the Arkansas State Licensing Board, governing state licensing boards.
Here.
Ah, yes. Oh, good. Come to the end of the table in the name of public safety and state your name for the record, please.
Yes, I am Despot Ringleader, the head of the Bureau governing all state bureaus, and it is my testimony the Arkansas State Licensing Board governing state licensing boards does have the authority to demand tribute in this situation and will provide in exchange a license to say they can continue to operate in the name of public safety.
It's hard to argue when the public safety is put at risk. Very well. We will consider Mrs. Ringleader's testimony as truth, and we will pay tribute in the name of public safety, of course.
In the name of public safety.
In the name of public safety.
He puts the Paul in politics. The Paul Harrell Program, brought to you by Conduit Media Group.
All right, welcome back. This has been a fun first hour. It's going to get better. We got a special guest going to be stopping by or calling in rather here in just a moment. You don't want to miss it. So I have a text message here. We interviewed Jacob Bundrick from the Center for Research and Economics, Arkansas Center, Arkansas. Keep that in mind to all of you establishment people that want to keep propping up the consultant class. This is a great text message. Stewart in Craighead County. It's clear from past interviews with the Arkansas Center for Research and Economics, research center members that just outside our back door, we have a qualified group to analyze our tax code and recommend where cuts will improve our GDP. Why in the world do we go outside our own state and pay heaven knows how much, well, it's like $600,000, to a group that has never lived or paid taxes in our state? We have lost our mind. Jacob Bundrick, Jeremy Horpendahl, and their group need to be commended by our leadership. Wake up, people. Now, this is Stuart, I appreciated it. I'm sure you were listening on, I believe it was Monday, when we talked about how they're hiring another consultant for one of their task farces to tell them what they want to hear, which is probably going to be, don't cut spending. We'll just shift all the taxes around. We'll cut taxes here, but we'll raise them on this group, and then we'll call it a tax cut, but we're really actually going to be taking it from like that. To me is what I fear is going to happen. They're not going to say we got to address spending. They're not going to do the hard stuff. And maybe I'm wrong. Maybe they will. I have my doubts. But all that being said, Stewart's right. Why not use the great folks at the Arkansas Center for Research and Economics to be your consultants? I mean, if you're going to use a consultant, why not use the guys that actually have done the research and have good ideas? Now, they may not be ideas you want to hear because they might be too bold. They might require you to cut spending. They might be against the corporate welfare that Asa Hutchinson loves so much. Oh, man. And by the way, the spin that comes out of the governor's office about what a great job they're doing. Man, it's funny. It's at this point, it's just like cause and effect, or I don't know. I mean, the word provoke comes to mind. It's pretty comical. Folks, they know that you're getting the truth. They know you're listening to this program. They know that you're going to great websites like conduitforaction.org. By the way, over at conduitforaction.org, they have a new piece out on spending. They also have a brand new weekly quiz, which we're going to get to in just a moment. And with that being said, that's the conclusion of our first hour. I do want to remind you, though, for our Patreon subscribers, our Wednesday weekly is out. If you want to check out the extra Paul Harrell Program content that we've put over on Patreon, become a subscriber for as little as $5 a month and get access to extra content from the program. We talked about the NFL and the decline of America, as well as a theologian I like to talk about, Francis Schaeffer. Back in a minute.
Rush, Glenn, Sean, and Paul. This is Jonesboro's 1013 FM News Talk, KBTM.
Paul Harrell, weekdays from 4 to 6. Learn more at paulharrell.com.
religious and more, traditional American values, Judeo-Christian ethics. Those on the left, not as much. I mean, it's just the way it is. And so these leftist causes become their religion, in my opinion. That's what I see. I say that they, and that's why right now, I mean, if you go up to a true leftist and you even mention Trump, it can get so divisive so quickly because there is just so much passion there, a religious fervor.
And no, you're exactly right, and that's not some right-wing, wide-eyed thing. Just go back to the DNC's convention, 4-6 years ago?
Yes.
When they denounced God, booed God on the DNC floor.
Yeah.
So I mean, this is not some right-wing radio host making some far-reaching, opinion about left versus right. It's there. They are anti-God. I mean. And so that's why you see Democrats that have any hint of morality or godliness believe in the Democratic Party.
Yeah.
But hey, on a sunshining note, Bob Corker's leaving the Senate. So that's
I know, I saw that. Oh man, maybe that. He had a lot to do with that Iran deal that was so bad. You know what I mean? If I remember correctly.
Yeah. Yeah, that dude, I mean, Tennessee, every time I get really frustrated about Republicans not knowing how to be conservatives in Arkansas, and I have plenty of frustration, is I look over at Tennessee, especially on the federal level. Now, their state level has finally got it. They're fighting. They are.
Governor. Oh, man, let's stop. Let me give you a specific example. So a couple of years ago, the governor of Tennessee, Bill Haslam, wants to expand Medicaid. Okay, this is, obviously before the election of Donald Trump. Obama's still in office. He's a Republican. He gets in his idea. They call a special session of the Tennessee legislature, and the governor's bill, the Republican governor bill in the Republican-controlled legislature doesn't even get out of committee because all of the Republicans say, we campaign to not expand Medicaid and we don't want Obamacare. Could you imagine, Donnie, if that happened here in Arkansas where Republicans actually quit being lapdogs and stood up to Asa Hutchinson and his progressive agenda?
From your lips to God's ears, man. I mean, I had a good friend over in Memphis say this. He said, Republicans got control of the House and the Senate in Arkansas, but one, they don't know how to be conservatives. I don't know if they're scared. I don't know if they never were real conservatives, real Republicans, or they're just flawed Democrats that just needed to run as Republicans. But something has to happen. But thankfully for Tennessee, they've made that turn. They're actually the legislature now realizes they are a separate, aspect of government, and their job is not to do the bidding of the governor, no matter what party he comes from. It's to represent the people that elected them.
Yep, that's exactly right. All right, we're talking with Donnie Copeland. He's a former state representative here in Arkansas. Now, Donnie, you've mentioned it several times in the duration of this interview, the Copeland Report.
Oh, did I?
Yeah, the Copeland Report. Now, I want to talk about this because this is just basically a news aggregator. Is that right? Just kind of like the Drudge Report,
that's right.
but for Arkansas.
Right. Exactly. We pull stories from not just Arkansas, but all over the nation. Breitbart News, a lot of really cool, more obscure American Thinker, which you're familiar with.
Yes.
America's Great. A lot of other sites, a lot of opinion pieces. I do more of the national opinion stuff, and then Robin, our co-founder, she was actually a newspaper reporter in her former life. She does most all the Arkansas, more of the, I call it the murder and mayhem stories.
Yeah.
And,
well, I mean, but it does have an Arkansas flair. And I want to give people. I posted it on our Facebook live feed, but I want to spell it because it's not spelled the way your last name is spelled. It's spelled Koplan report.com. That's correct.
Correct.
Okay.
Correct.
And it has an Arkansas flair to it. I mean, for example, you do have the national stories, but there's just a lot of good places to find just really quick-hitting Arkansas news. You've got the Gravette Police Department asking for help finding a missing teen. Another headline, U of A student accused of video voyeurism, sharing images online. Then down to Conway mother accused of trying to suffocate infant. Miller County judge gives man 100 years. Stuttgart woman blames Arkansas DHS data breach for outstanding hospital bills. I mean, these are some really good stories, and you have put it all into a Drudge Report. It looks a lot like the Drudge Report-esque website.
Exactly. Yeah.
And it's like a one-stop shop, I guess.
Exactly. And just kind of in this, and I meant to say this earlier, so this is not just kind of a thank you, but I want to tell you, man, I'm so excited about Patreon. I'm excited about what you guys are doing, the extra content, and so I'm actually signing up. I had meant to do that before I left town. I've been gone.
I understand.
And so just hearing you talking about the new and fresh stuff and the extras, I'm really excited. And
the maintenance of a free society is a very difficult and complicated thing. And it requires a self-denying ordinance of the most extreme kind. It requires a willingness to put up with temporary evils on the basis of the subtle and sophisticated understanding that if you step in to do something about them, you not only may make them worse, but you will spread your tentacles and get bad results elsewhere.
I think it's time we ask ourselves if we still know the freedoms that were intended for us by the Founding Fathers. We lose freedom here, there's no place to escape to. This is the last stand on earth. Whether we believe in our capacity for self-government or whether we abandon the American Revolution and confess that a little intellectual elite in a far distant capital can plan our lives for us better than we can plan them ourselves.
You're listening to the Paul Harrell Program, brought to you by Conduit Media Group.
All right, folks, welcome to the program. Thank you so much for being with us. This is hour number 2, and it's the intersection of conservative ideas and reality. We're building a liberty machine here, and what a huge win last night for grassroots conservatism over in Alabama. Judge Roy Moore winning by essentially 10 points against Luther Strange, who, well, I mean, the odds, the money, I mean, it was just incredible victory for Roy Moore, Judge Roy Moore, and so he goes on to the general. Joining us now to talk about this, we have the political director from the Roy Moore for Senate campaign, Alex Roundtree, joins us. Alex, welcome, sir.
Hey, Paul, it's great to be with you.
Yes, sir. I'm glad that you could. So tell us. Glad you could be with us. Tell us about the feeling right now. Congrats on the big win last night.
Well, we appreciate that. The feeling is something. It's hard to describe, I guess, when you're outspent 30 million to 1 or 30 to 1, I guess. You know, and you just see the establishment scrambling to do everything they can, especially the Senate Leadership Fund and whatnot. And to see their arrogance, honestly, to think that they can just buy negative ads and shape the opinions of the people of Alabama. You know, and that's not the way it works.
Yeah.
So,
well,
it was great. It was great to see.
Yeah, it absolutely was. I think it demonstrates that the election was more. It really just says, because I know Donald Trump endorsed Luther Strange, and I also now know that you've got, Donald Trump is going to support Roy Moore. But it was interesting that it was the ideas that people voted on, last November, and it seems like those ideas are still around. They still resonate with the people, and they want those conservative ideas to become a reality. You agree with that?
Absolutely, and the irony in all this is the establishment in D.C. when Trump was elected, obviously they were on pins and needles. They didn't like that. They tried all sorts of stuff to keep that from happening. ideas thing. And I think that we just proved last night that's not the case.
Mm-hmm.
You know, we the people are sick and fed up of things as usual, and we're looking for real conservatives, and we're looking for change.
Yeah. No, absolutely. I think, and the people are certainly, I mean, you can just feel it. Last night was just such a huge victory for the grassroots, And now I want to tell our audience something, Alex. We're talking with Alex Roundtree. Again, he's political director for Roy Moore campaign, but you're also the former political director for the Arkansas Republican Party. Now, that's correct, right?
That is correct, yeah.
So why did you leave the Arkansas GOP?
Well, honestly, I was contacted by people from the Roy Moore campaign, and I had some ties to some people that were in charge of this campaign. Working on this race was something I just honestly couldn't turn down. Everybody likes a good fight. I especially do. And, I got in politics because I wanted to make a difference. I wanted to bring actual conservatism, back into the fold. And this working on the Roy Moore campaign was a way that I could actually do that.
Okay. So,
you see what I'm saying.
Yeah, no, I think I do. Let me just ask you point blank, in the Arkansas GOP, when you were working there, is there a resistance to true limited government ideas within the Arkansas Republican Party?
Well, look, first, let me thank Doyle Webb and Sarah Joe for every opportunity they gave me, and I absolutely loved working with them and have all the respect in the world for them. But that question is sort of vague in the sense of what are we considering the Arkansas GOP? Are we just talking about the staff? Are we talking about the executive committee? I mean, because I don't want to throw anybody under the bus. I mean, there's a lot of really good limited government conservatives in different parts, of
right
of the
you're saying
state Republican Party.
Yeah, you're saying they're not all bad. Yeah. But let's focus let's focus on the leadership. I mean, you know what I mean. That's what my question is. Is there a resistance to, limited government ideas? You said yourself you left the Arkansas Republican Party because you wanted to, revitalize, and you went and worked for an anti-establishment, a guy who didn't have the support of the establishment, so that you could actually see some of the, true conservatism have a shot. And so did the Arkansas Republican Party, was there really not a chance to do that in the Arkansas Republican Party at this point?
Yeah, I mean, not to the extent that I was able to do it here. And let me be clear, way before the Senate race here in Alabama was down to a runoff, I'm talking back in the spring, I was told point blank, and this isn't from the Arkansas GOP, this is from the RNC. Anybody that works and helps a candidate that's not Luther Strange would be blackballed from Republican politics. I was told that point blank, and you can see that in the way all the other candidates, especially the serious candidates, their campaign structures. I mean, there's Mo Brooks, who is a wonderful guy and who is a current legislature congressman, and even for his campaign, it's hard to find people that that are faced with absolutely being blackballed from their career of choice.
Yeah.
That want to partake.
Right.
You know?
Right. So when we're talking with Alex Roundtree, former political director for the RPA here in Arkansas, and Roy Moore campaign political director now, coming off this huge victory, and I want to keep focused on the Arkansas GOP, Alex, because we came off this session where we have all these tax increases, attempted tax increases, and this was supported by ASA, going after more and more money. We have an allergy. ASA didn't want any social bills, socially conservative bills, or very, not the ones that the people wanted. What were you thinking? I mean, as a conservative working there, what were your thoughts on all of that? Could you believe the Republican Party they were not acting like the platform they run on?
Well, let me say this, because I definitely have a confidentiality clause with the RPA. So this isn't I'm not saying this as a former employee. I'm saying this just as a political operative and observer. The legislative session was absolutely frustrating. I mean, the fact that Arkansas is theoretically in the top 10 reddest states now, and it's the most southern state that's in the top 10 states. And if you could see me right now, I'm using little air quotes.
Okay.
Because, we have majorities in the state house, the state senate, all constitutional officers, but we can't pass a trial run on education, and school choice. I mean, just take that as an example. I mean, look, people need to quit beating around the bush and just see things for what they are. If we're not passing limited government, fiscally conservative bills, if we're increasing taxes, and we have a majority in every possible place that we could, except at a few county levels, there's a problem. And it's because most of the elected officials are not, they're not conservative, fiscally or socially.
Yeah. So
necessarily.
And I mean, I'm going to assume that situation, that environment down there. I mean, I know you had a great opportunity, obviously, with the Roy Moore campaign, but it probably had to make it kind of easy to leave, knowing that here's this is an anti-establishment situation in Alabama. I'm going to go help out versus the establishment here in Arkansas. Would you agree with that?
I would agree with that. I mean, I'll just leave it at
that. Okay. So let me ask you this. Were you ever aware of any situations, ideas down there? I know you said you have a confidentiality agreement. I do not want you to get anywhere close to breaking that with the Republican Party of Arkansas. But, I mean, is there an effort to protect big government Republicans and make it harder on platform Republicans? Because it seems like now at this point, when these establishment non-platform Republicans get called out or they get criticized for acting like Democrats and progressives with the policies they're pursuing, that's a circle the wagon protectionist mentality, and they start to look at the platform Republicans who are standing up from my angle, and they don't like them. So, I mean, I guess, I've had Doyle Webb on the program, Alex, and he's talked about how primaries are a good thing if you're, if you're upset with the party, you're upset with your candidate. Primaries are a good thing, and the context of that question was to try to protect the image of the Republican Party, which is terrible right now. We have Jake Files, who will not resign. The GOP will not call on him to resign. They got a real image problem going on right now. And so, what are your thoughts on that? I mean, are there any situations that are designed to protect big government Republicans and make it harder on the platform guys who are really standing up for what they campaigned on?
Well, sure. And I mean, look, okay. Yeah, primaries are the way to get who we want into office, whether that's a conservative or whether that's an intellectual Republican. However, what's not said is who's being backed. In a primary behind the scenes, and where resources and money are being directed. So, we're not looking at a zero-sum game here, where everything is completely square and everybody's starting on an even level. So, I mean, conservatives actually have to basically either be independently wealthy and have name recognition, or they have to band together, which is something that we're seeing nationally now after this election last night.
Mm-hmm.
At a huge level, with people coming together. I mean, we had Nigel Farage come Monday night for a rally.
Yes.
From Brexit for this sole reason, but it's the same at the state level. The real conservatives just don't have the backing that the establishment does, so they have to be scrappy. They have to be.
That's exactly right.
Creative, I mean, but it's getting to the point where the people are finally kind of waking up to what's going on.
Yes.
Look, a buddy that also works on the campaign, on Judge Moore's campaign, and I were talking last night about McCain and then Romney and how terrible candidates they were. And then we started talking about Bush and W and how non-conservative he was. But until like 2009, 10, and the Tea Party movement, people just they assume that if you're a Republican, you're a conservative, and that's not reality.
Yeah.
By any.
We're talking with Alex Roundtree from the Roy Moore campaign, the former political director of the Republican Party of Arkansas. Now, Alex, I want to ask you about Roy Moore. Last Thursday, Jan Morgan traveled to Montgomery and gave a speech after that debate to try to rally the crowd up. I watched it online. I thought she did a great job. What were your thoughts on Jan Morgan's comments?
Oh, she did fantastic. She was incredible, and we really, really appreciate her making the trip and coming out and supporting the judge, but also, standing up for her conservative beliefs, and that's why we were so eager to get her there.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, she's nationally known, and this was a coincidence, because I don't want people to think that this is the reason that she was invited, but she's a spokesperson for the Citizens for Trump organization, which I believe she said is the largest national grassroots organization for Trump. And we had been working with them on an endorsement, and they came through, and it just happened to be at the time Jan was already in town, and she's their spokesperson.
Yes.
But she was invited before that, but I didn't even know she was connected with them.
Right.
And it's funny, sort of, I guess, if you look at the way Jan's been treated around the state of Arkansas. I mean, okay. So I have chairs of county committees that are calling and are requesting to have Roy Moore come to a Lincoln Day dinner. So I give them the stipulation that, well, yeah, sure, we'll try to work something out. are you okay with having Jan Morgan speak and introduce the judge? And then you hear a big pause. Well, I mean, look, I'm sorry, but that's embarrassing for the state of Arkansas.
Yep.
I mean, you have one of the most closely watched, nationally run Senate races in recent memory, and we're embracing her with open arms. I mean, people outside of Arkansas love her and want her.
Exactly. Well, and the people, here's the thing, the people inside Arkansas agree with what she says, and they like her, but it's they don't want to step on Asa's toes. They don't want to step on that establishment that you left, Alex, to go do real conservative work where it's actually allowed, where they're not afraid of ideas. And, it's and I'm glad that you've been following it here, about how she was disinvited, and then, they're putting all this pressure. We got emails from Mississippi County and people out of the governor's office saying, don't have Jan Morgan to speak. We know that their establishment, the stuff that you've said here is not really telling us anything new other than you are confirming, hey, this environment is, it is what we all suspect it is, that there's really this movement to push out limited government thought. And we've got to go to break, and I will give you the last word, Alex Roundtree.
Well, I didn't mean to not bring anything new, but I didn't. You
did bring stuff new. Go ahead.
I know. I'll go ahead and confirm that, though. I mean, look, the establishment. Look, they know the price of everything, but they know the value of nothing. And it's everything that you're saying is true, that I can confirm or deny. And look, the people just need to stand up and realize what's going on, and I think they're starting to. And just seek the change. Don't be afraid. Like Kylie Crossnow, I give her a huge prop in Mississippi County. Just because you're told not to do something doesn't mean that you don't have to do it.
That's exactly right. Exactly right. Alex Roundtree, we appreciate it, sir. And I'd love to do another interview. Keep us posted on what's everything going on with Roy Moore campaign, and congratulations on the success, the big win last night.
Thanks, Paul. You take care.
Hey, thank you, Alex. Folks, we got to take a break. Back in a moment.
This is State Representative Dan Sullivan with a Liberty Moment. If all men are created equal, that's final. If they are endowed by their Creator with inalienable rights, that's final. If governments derive their just powers from the consent of the governed, that's final. No advance, no progress can be made beyond these propositions. If anyone wishes to deny their truth or their soundness, the only direction in which he can proceed historically is not forward but backward, toward the time when there was no equality, no rights of the individual, and no rule by the people.
Paid for by Sullivan for Arkansas.
The declaration will be a triumph. I tell you, a triumph. If I was ever sure of anything, I'm sure of that. A triumph. And if it isn't, we've still got 4 days left to think of something else.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, thanks so much. I got to tell you, welcome back. What a great interview with Alex Roundtree. I mean, here's a guy who was with the Arkansas Republican Party, and he left, and he's had this big success with the Roy Moore campaign. Notice that former Governor Mike Huckabee has congratulated Roy Moore on his victory. Have you heard anything from our sitting Republican governor, Asa Hutchinson, on congratulating? I haven't heard anything from Asa congratulating Roy Moore on his victory. And that's probably because, this is not a good trend here. It's not a good bellwether for what the people are really feeling right now nationwide about the swamp, about the establishment. And, to try to make Donald Trump the establishment, well, there's still all these people that don't want what the status quo is. They don't want the establishment. And so, it's certainly a lot of nervous people. They're nervous because this program is getting to more people, that more people are figuring out the information that we have no one else does. And they're also nervous about national trends. Back in a minute.
Paul Harrell, weekdays from 4 to 6. Learn more at paulharrell.com.
Help finding a missing teen. Another headline, U of A student accused of video voyeurism, sharing images online. Then down to Conway mother accused of trying to suffocate infant. Miller County judge gives man 100 years. Stuttgart woman blames Arkansas DHS data breach for outstanding hospital bills. I mean, these are some really good stories, and you have put it all into a Drudge Report. It looks a lot like the Drudge Report-esque website.
Exactly. Yeah.
And it's like a one-stop shop, I guess.
Exactly. And just kind of in this, and I meant to say this earlier, so this is not just kind of a thank you, but I want to tell you, man, I'm so excited about Patreon. I'm excited about what you guys are doing, the extra content, and so I'm actually signing up. I had meant to do that before I left town. I've been gone.
I understand.
And so just hearing you talking about the new and fresh stuff and the extras, I'm really excited. And I'm going to tell you this. I've told you this personally, and I'll tell your audience that, I mean, you're great on the radio. People love you, and I'm so thankful to hear that you're getting beyond just what you have for a while, but you're really spreading out and getting all over the state. And I'm going to tell you, you are, and I think we're emerging to do that because we do a conservative slant to everything that we do. That you're emerging, and you're a lone voice in a lot of ways out there because we just don't have much media that will stand up to this governor, stand up to the legislature, and the powers that be. The media is really lapdogs, and we need some media that will stand up and hold them accountable and hold the other media accountable.
Yeah, well,
so thank you.
Well, it's I don't know. I mean, I don't know. I appreciate your kind words, Donnie. I wouldn't know what else to do, honestly.
Me either, Paul. I couldn't, in good conscience, do anything else. That's I'm like you. I mean, it's like it's not heroic to you or me because it's who we are.
Yeah.
And it's really sad that we will hold people accountable. And I don't think I don't think you've ever. In fact, I'll say this: I was accused not long ago of slandering the governor, and I took exception to that because when the governor's family was drug in because of a unfortunate thing that happened with some of his family, I said that's wrong.
Yeah.
Just because he's the governor, that should not be. And
I didn't cover it either because I was like, well, it's not really relevant.
Yeah, and I think not only was I upset that they did that, I felt and I prayed for the governor and his wife, and I don't have one personal issue. If he was conservative and he governed conservative, and the legislature governed conservative, man, I'd be his biggest fan. If he started today, I'd be his biggest fan. So mine is principled.
Me too.
And I see this progressivism that it just continues to creep, and it really hadn't slowed down hardly any from Mike Beebe.
Yeah, you're right. Donnie Copeland, that's all the time we have, sir. We appreciate it as always. And the website, again, is the Copeland Report, KOPLAN report.com. We'll talk to you again soon, Donnie.
Thank you, Paul.
All
Take care.
Appreciate it. Folks, got to go to break. Back in a minute.
The Paul Broadcasting across Arkansas and holding politicians accountable for what they say and do. The Paul Harrell Program.
All right, here we are. Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. It's that time of the week. You know what that time is. It's time for our weekly Conduit for Action quiz where Joe tries to, not embarrass himself. Emphasis on tries. That's right. Now, Joe, I just want to ask you, did you swear to accept the results of this survey regardless of what's on it?
Sure. Yes.
All right, so you're not going to try to
there's no. It's not a sure.
crab walk
yes.
on us or anything. Okay, good.
Why would I crab walk on you to begin with?
I don't know. Just back out of it, All right,
I've never backed out of anything in my life.
All right, as a taxpayer and resident of Arkansas, this is up at conduitforaction.org. As a taxpayer and resident of Arkansas, you have a right to know what your government is doing. The Arkansas Freedom of Information Act provides a mechanism for government transparency. FOIA allows people to see public records of a government entity, such as their financial reports, minutes of a meeting, or email correspondence of a government official. This quiz will educate you on the history of the FOIA and how you can use it to know what politicians are doing in your name with your money. Take the quiz here. Click on it, and we're going to go over to this SurveyMonkey website. Knowledge is power, Arkansas Government 101. Here we go. Question number 1, Joe. In what year did the Arkansas Freedom of Information Act become law? In what year?
Okay, so I don't actually know this, at all. If it's been said before, I don't remember. I forget.
Yeah.
But I do. I'm pretty sure it happened. I'm pretty sure it happened before I was born, so definitely 2011. But I feel like it's 1967. I feel like it was really early.
Okay.
I don't know when FOIA started to become a thing, a really important thing, but I remember it being very early.
Okay. All right, hang on.
Earlier than most states.
Let me read the options. In what year did the Arkansas Freedom of Information Act become law? A, 1952, B, 1967, C, 1991, or D, 2011?
Yeah, I don't think it's 2011.
Yeah.
It's way too late. And 91 seems too late for me as well.
Yeah.
I think it's either 67 or 52. I'm going to go with 67.
Going with 67 on this one.
Yeah.
All right. Next up, hang on a second. I got to do something to get the mood right here. Hang on. Let me see here. I've got an issue I'm running into with what I'm trying to do. Oh, yeah, here we go.
Trying to find your Jeopardy music.
Yes, there's... So. All right. Question number 2. Which Arkansas governor signed the Arkansas Freedom of Information Act into law? Was it A, Governor Mike Beebe, B, Governor Mike Huckabee, C, Governor Winthrop Rockefeller, or D, Governor Dale Bumpers?
Definitely wasn't the first two.
Okay, so not Mike Beebe, not Mike Huckabee. Mike Huckabee, by the way, congratulating Roy Moore on his Alabama Senate win. Still no word from Asa.
I'm going to go with Rockefeller.
Okay. C is your choice. Governor Winthrop Rockefeller. Question number 3. What information is subject to disclosure under the Arkansas Freedom of Information Act? A, any public record, quote, public record, end quote. B, only state government records. C, only local government records. D, only records that the governor allows.
So public records includes all of the things that happen down at the legislature, salaries and stuff like that.
Yeah, stuff that...
Then it's definitely public record.
Yeah,
it's public records.
That's what I would think, because we're talking about, it's public. Is the public's money being used? And there's a record of it. Now, not when it comes to recording committee votes.
No, not at all.
That was another quiz, though.
Yeah, that's a different one.
All right, so you're going to go with any public record.
Any public record.
All right, question number 4. Who may obtain records under the Arkansas Freedom of Information Act? A, only members of the Associated Press. B, any Arkansas citizen. C, registered Arkansas voters only. Or D, Arkansas taxpayers only.
It's definitely not the first one.
Okay.
Because I'm pretty sure Joey McCutcheon is not part of the Associated Press, and he was able to get FOIA information.
Yes, Joey was. Joey was.
Oh. The other 3, now it's just kind of a mixed bag.
And any Arkansas citizen.
Yeah, I'm going to go with...
Registered Arkansas voters only. Arkansas taxpayers only. Which
I'm going to go
one?
with any Arkansas citizen.
Okay, anybody.
Because to be an Arkansas citizen, you also have to be an American citizen.
Yes. Yes, that's correct. All right, question number 5. Once a request for a public record is made, how long does that government entity have to provide the records requested? 24 hours? 3 days? 10 days? As long as they want.
It's definitely not the last one because
that would be
because Joey wouldn't have got the information he wanted if it was that, because they would never.
Now, what's interesting with what they try to do with what Bart Hester, what he sponsored, what they were trying to do with the FOIA laws, and what State Representative Bob Ballinger amended in the House, that terrible, they tried to gut the FOIA law. It actually could have ended up being as long as they want. If we're talking about government attorney, all the government entity would have to do is share it with their attorney, and they could claim forever. Well, until the statute of limitations ran out for potential lawsuits. The government could say, well, we don't want to provide this because it might result, in us getting sued. And all they would have to do, it was just a terrible idea. But anyway, so I don't think it's as long as they want either. But so is it 24 hours, 3 days, or is it 10 days?
I'm going with 3 days.
3 days.
Because I feel like 3 days is reasonable. It allows them to collect the information and then send it to them.
Okay.
Because 24 hours is really short.
Yeah.
And it could easily lead to them not, quote unquote, collecting or not having enough time to collect everything necessary.
Yeah. And I'm gonna assume that these are business days.
Yeah, as well. Yeah, business days.
All right, number 6. Who does a person contact to make an FOIA request? Is it A, the custodian of records for the government entity of which the records are sought, B, the attorney general, C, the local newspaper, or D, your elected official?
Definitely not the local newspaper.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't. It's not your elected official. I'm not sure if it's the attorney general, because I feel like Leslie Rutledge has a lot to do. Like, I feel like she has a lot that's going on just in general.
Your powers of deduction are good.
Yeah, I feel like the attorney general has a lot that's going on, so she doesn't have time to deal with every single FOIA that comes across her desk. So I feel like it'd be dealt with like a secretary-style individual. So probably the custodian.
The custodian of records for the government entity. Government's pretty big. Yeah, I think that's the fair. All right. So, question number 7: have you subscribed to Conduit for Action's email list to get new surveys and articles automatically sent to your inbox? You have done this.
I've done these.
What town do you live in?
Times.
All right. Okay, what are the results? What do we have here?
I don't want to look.
Hang on.
Tell me what I got.
Oh, my goodness.
Got a 0, didn't I?
You got 100%.
Yeah.
Congratulations, Joe.
Yeah.
Congratulations.
My powers of deduction.
6 for 6. That's the best you've ever done. Perfect.
Right. That's right.
Joe for the win. All right. Well, there you have it, folks. In what year did the Arkansas Freedom of Information Act become law? It was in 1967. It is the best Freedom of Information Act law in the country, or one of them. It was done by Winthrop Rockefeller.
Yeah. The reason why I picked Rockefeller was because, one, I knew Beebe and Huckabee had nothing to do with it, putting it in place. I never heard of Dale Bumpers, but Rockefeller's name has come up a lot in terms of...
we have mentioned it in the context of FOIA.
Well, I was talking more like him being a very conservative individual.
Yeah.
Or at least some of the things he passed.
Well, that certainly was, for transparency, it's one of the best things ever happened. Yeah. Let's see, what information... So any public record is subject... Keep scrolling down, Joe. Who may obtain it is any Arkansas citizen. They have 3 days to comply with it, and if you want to send an FOIA request, you got to contact the custodian for the government entity, the custodian of records. Well, good job, Joe. That's the first time. First time.
First 100.
Good for you. I mean, let's.
Welcome to the Joe Show.
That's right. Folks, over at Conduit for Action, not only can you take their quiz, you can get their amazing articles. This most recent one here, wasting more of your tax dollars. Legislator hires consultant. Now, this is good that they're addressing this, because you have the text message we got last hour that was from somebody in Craighead County, and Stewart was his name. And we were interviewing Jacob Bundrick from the Center for Research and Economics, and he was going over this, taxes and manufacturing paper that he wrote and had published. It was really good. It just talks about how government, we've got these laws on the books that are, costing us $2 billion a year in potential GDP, gross domestic product, how much we produce. and what that's doing to us, how the government is hurting it. And this person, Stewart, he said, hey, why can't they be the consultants? Why can't they be used to advise the legislature? Well, they'd rather spend a lot more money and waste a lot more money on people that are going to give them the results that they want. I don't think they're interested in big, bold ideas. Not under Asa Hutchinson, they're not. So the headline, wasting more of your tax dollars, the legislature hires a consultant. The Arkansas legislature is wasting more of your money. This time, nearly $650,000 is being spent for consultant fees. The prime reason is to hire a consultant to tell a legislative task force how to revise Arkansas taxes. The problem with Arkansas taxes are this: that Arkansas is a high-tax state and is surrounded by low-tax states. Arkansas politicians are addicted to spending too much of your money. State reserves have steadily gone down since the days of Governor Mike Beebe. Let me stop right there. Our tax problem is about to get worse. You want to know why? So far, the Donald Trump tax plan looks like it could really help. It looks like it could be, they're going to double standard deductions to $24,000. They are going to move, I think, the 10% bracket, the lowest bracket, up to a 12%. So that's technically you could say it's an increase, but then they're doubling the deductions. They're increasing the child tax credit as well. If this Trump plan does go through, we'll see. The devil's going to be in the details with this stuff. They're going to cap your S corporations, your sole proprietor LLCs at 25%. So you will not be able to be taxed more than 25%. That's going to be huge because right now you can be taxed as high as 40%, depending on how much money your business makes. You know what I mean? It could be huge for the economy. So that'll be awesome. Let's see, what else? It's going to be good. But the one thing that they're doing, the one thing that they're going to eliminate local and state taxes in your deductions. So that means that, if you make $35,000, you're basically in the 7% tax bracket, the highest tax bracket that Arkansas has in our state income tax. Other states don't have income taxes. Well, now all of a sudden, thanks to the unproductive, Republican-controlled legislature, we will no longer be able to write off that 7% of the money that we owe on income taxes. Now, if you're in a high-tax state like New York or California, that's going to really hurt them. It's going to force California and New York to actually have to they're going to have citizens wanting real reform, and I think it could be a good thing. But for a state like Arkansas that is supposedly red but refuses to enact any of the reforms that the Republican voters are voting for, it's going to make Asa Hutchinson and this do-nothing lapdog legislature look pretty bad when you can no longer write off your property taxes or your income taxes in the state when you pay your federal taxes. Think about that. Arkansas is going to feel the effects of a New York or California when Texas and Tennessee and Florida are not. And then you take in the context that the other states around us that do have similar tax structures as ours, they're taxed at a much lower rate. They have an average cost of $5,000 per person to run their government. We're taking $7,000 per person from the people to run ours. And it just makes absolutely no sense. So, thanks a lot. I'm pretty sure you can hear my sarcasm on Twitter. Good thing, Donald Trump's plan is not going to let you take those deductions anymore out of your state, with state income tax on your federal taxes. Good thing Asa and the General Assembly haven't wasted 3 years, and they've reformed our tax code, right? Good thing that they haven't wasted 3 years of doing anything real, actually taking the status quo and changing it. No, we have basically the status quo that we have, and we have a governor that can't quit spending our money. Anyway, back to the CFA article here. Actual reasons they created a task force and hiring a consultant. Number one, delay. Now, this fits in perfectly to what I just said. Delay. The task force was created to derail. Back in January, the task force on taxes was created to derail Republican legislators who wanted real tax cuts in 2017. Particularly, wait for it, Income taxes. Yeah, that's right. The creation of the task force was added to a tax relief bill as a way to punt the ball down the field to buy more time in order to stop the call for real tax cuts. And now, if Donald Trump gets his tax proposal through, which who knows, we're now going to be paying more taxes than we would have if they would have actually reformed things the way they should have, the way we voted for Republicans to govern. Number 2, controlling the answer is the real reason they hired a consultant. Hiring a consultant is used by big government Republicans to get the answers they want, just as they did when they hired a consultant on Medicaid and Obamacare Medicaid expansion. Uncle Asa and Nephew Jim running the same play. Oh, I get a shout out here. The tax task force, or tax farce, as Paul Harrell calls it, is the same exact plan Governor Asa Hutchinson and nephew Senator Jim Hendren used to keep the Obamacare Medicaid expansion in Arkansas. Medicaid task force was used to keep Arkansas as an Obamacare Medicaid state under a new name, Arkansas Works. Arkansas Works serves primarily able-bodied working-age adults. We've told you about this many times, without children, and they don't work. The tax task force is being used to keep Arkansas a high-tax state in order to pay for Arkansas Works and further expansion of state government. You see, if they would have had legitimate tax cuts this last session, they wouldn't have had the money to pay for our 5% share and later 10% share of Medicaid expansion. Why do we say it's the exact same big government plan, Conduit for Action Rights? Let's compare the two task forces. Medicaid task force was proposed by Asa Hutchinson. The tax task force was proposed by Asa Hutchinson. The lead sponsor of the bill for the Medicaid task force, Jim Hendren. The lead sponsor of the bill for the tax task force, Jim Hendren. The legislation derailed by the task force proposal derailed 2015 efforts to repeal Arkansas Obamacare Medicaid expansion. In 2017, derailed efforts to make substantial cuts to taxes, particularly income taxes. You see, they didn't want, in both these cases, the task forces were created to stop the policy that they didn't want implemented. Was a task force needed so the issue could be studied? For Medicaid, no, the task force took the issue away from the House and the Senate committees on public health and labor. Instead, the task force controlled which legislators had a voice. The same thing can be said here. They took it away from standing committees on revenue and tax and instead gave it to legislators that they wanted to have a voice. Who was the Senate chair of the task force on Obamacare? Jim Hendren. Who is the Senate chair of the task force on taxes? Jim Hendren. The task force membership, stacked with legislators who previously voted for Obamacare Medicaid expansion in Arkansas, that was the Obamacare task force. The task force membership for the tax committee or whatever, stacked with legislators who voted for several tax increases in 2017. The consultant and predetermined results. Senator Jim Hendren and other liberal big government leaders controlled the consultant contract. The consultant's report admits its marching orders included justifying continuing coverage of the Obamacare Medicaid population. The consultant and predetermined result on fast forward to 2017 in taxes, no result yet. But as co-chair, Senator Jim Hendren will be guiding the tax consultant just as he did with the Medicaid consultant. So we expect the continuation of Arkansas as a high-tax state while using smoke and mirrors to shift tax burdens among Arkansans, along with some minor tax relief that won't lower the Arkansas tax burden. Results of the last task force was more big government. Senator Jim Hendren misled other legislators, saying the task force legislation was the way to end Arkansas Obamacare Medicaid expansion. Then he himself sponsored the legislation to rename and keep it. What about the result of this task force? We don't know yet, but we can expect government to keep Arkansas the highest tax state in the region. They're certainly going to protect the amount of money they're getting now. And let's look at the last part of this graph. Avoiding it becoming an election issue. In the Medicaid task force, the report was filed after candidate filing deadlines. The bill to continue Obamacare Medicaid expansion in Arkansas was filed after the primary election. The deadline for the task force's final report now, like the tax farce, is December 31st, 2018, which is after the 2018 elections. Senator Jim Hendren, hashtag Commodore Nephew, defended hiring a consultant, saying it has a whole new level of credibility versus this is what 3 or 4 legislators thought, and the Bureau of Legislative Research gave them these facts, especially when you are doing the hard things. This said by the man who will have the biggest role in guiding the consultant in the direction Uncle Asa wants it, just like when Commodore Nephew guided the consultant for Medicaid task force to require support for continuation of Obamacare Medicaid expansion. The task farce and consultant is just smoke and mirrors to keep Arkansas a liberal tax and spend state. To keep the people fooled, there will be some tax cuts, as there is every 2 years, and Arkansas will continue to be the highest taxed state in the region. This is what we get from Uncle Asa and Commodore Nephew. We're going to take a break. You can check this article out, conduit4action.org. Liberty Machine rolls on. Back in a minute.
In a world full of constituents with social media accounts, bloggers just looking to increase their page views, and a talk radio host who generally is just the worst, how are Little Rock's elite supposed to conduct business with such a lack of privacy? Introducing the 1835 Club, older and more refined than other clubs that claim discretion. The 1835 Club is for seasoned political veterans that want to conduct the highest form of aristocratic business with the public's money. Are you a schemer? Do you someday want a guaranteed flow of taxpayer money to support your business? Is it your dream to see the .gov domain at the end of your business website? Don't listen to the imitators. The 1835 Club is the place where corrupt politicians and businessmen hatch their next crony schemes. At the 1835 Club, we make lobbying safe and legal. Ethics. Why, of course. All business is done in an ethical manner. Just look for the sign above the door that reads, loophole. Are you tired of the Capitol Police restricting your access to the roof after a perfectly good night of drinking? The 1835 Club has libations and a perfectly good roof. Other crony clubs that promise discretion try to lure you in by advertising bars made out of aeroplanes. Well, at the 1835 Club, instead of an airplane fuselage, we've got a space shuttle. No, not a bar. We've got an actual space shuttle that makes a daily run to the moon so members of the 1835 Club can have some real privacy away from the bloggers and taxpayers. Are you an Arkansas aristocrat? Do you want to be? It's the 1835 Club, and we work tirelessly to make sure the good old boy system remains alive and well. Join today.
Disclaimer. The 1835 Club reserves the right to deny membership to anyone who has principles. Any talk of the Declaration of Independence or the Constitution must be done in jest or, at the very least, with a condescending tone. And finally, the 1835 Club will be given a 25% commission of any agreements made between politicians and the business community.
PHP Parody. If you would like information about advertising or supporting the Paul Harrell program and Conduit Media Group, call 870-275-9755. Join the fight against big government and advance the preservation of liberty by calling 870-275-9755. The Paul Harrell program, brought to you by Conduit Media Group.
All right, folks, we're about out of time. Thank you so much for being with us. I didn't really have time. Hey, I just want you to know, Facebook is really funny when you see the grassroots people coming out and correcting, just really clarifying the type of government that they want. It's really good. And then we have, I noticed we've got people deleting Facebook comments. We got politicians deleting Facebook comments. We got others blocking others they don't disagree with. It's pretty crazy. The establishment, I will tell you this, the divided Republican Party is going to, when it gets brought to the forefront in this state, people will all of a sudden it'll be obvious who they're aligning with, where you might have thought in the past that wasn't the case. Maybe they're with us with the conservatives. Maybe they're this coming primary season, you're going to see who is really in ACE's camp and the establishment's camp and who is not. I can promise you that. We'll see you tomorrow.